All right. Okay, and good morning, everybody. I am so glad all of you made it this morning on a very, very short notice. A very warm welcome to Elisabeth, our guest speaker today. Elisabeth, thank you so much for making it. Before I actually give a small introduction to who you are and what your work is, I would just like to share my screen very briefly today, this morning, just to kind of have a positive affirmation to start the day with. So I'm just going to read this aloud for all of us. We are part of something greater. I say yes to the abundant flow of good in my life. I identify with success and I prosper in everything I do. I expand in abundance, success, health, and love every day as I inspire those around me to do the same. So that was just something that I feel that all of us here have a mission. We are all here as representing either an elementary or a middle or a high school as their wellness chairs. So I just felt that this was such an apt quote for all of us to start the day with. All right, so let me begin by introducing Elisabeth to everybody before I hand it over to you, Elisabeth. Oh, before I do your introduction, I can introduce everybody. I'm new here. I'm the new Health and Wellness Chair. I've taken over from Lily, and Lily's here on the call, and she's my mentor. So I'm going to request Lily to come and join the meeting as much as she can and guide me through the whole process and keep the communication open. And now moving up to Elisabeth. Elisabeth is a parent educator and a parent coach. She has founded Joyful Parenting Coaching to provide parents the skills they need for constructive communication. And I was going through your website, Elisabeth, and I was reading that your motto is to help parents be the architect of their families, correct? And I know you're going to help us walk through a little workshop where you're going to help us understand what it means to be the architect of our own family.
Yes, absolutely. Are you handing it over?
Yeah. Would you like to share your screen or anything?
I would like to share my screen.
Okay.
And ladies, if you'd be willing to show your faces, it's much more fun to present to people rather than to blank screens. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Gita. Well, it's a nice picture of you in any case. Name. That's some idea. Thank you.
Hi there.
I really appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I'm a little late.
Not to worry. All right. So actually, I'm going to just stop the share just to introduce real quickly. So thank you so much, Ankita, for having me today. It's a real pleasure to talk to parents. That is my passion. I left teaching because I noticed how isolated parents were becoming. And I think as a result of the isolation, overwhelmed and anxious and feeling guilty about their kids. And somehow I feel like in the last 10, 20 years, we've gotten the notion that parenting is innate. It's not. Right? We are primates. We are social creatures. There is not a chimpanzee mother on the face of the planet that arrives at parenting without having a whole posse of auntie and grandmother chimps around her to show her the ropes. And furthermore, she's been up in the tree with all the other baby chimps, and she's been lending a hand, and she's been observing what's going on. And so many parents today are experiencing parenting as I drop my kids off, at childcare, and I pick them up from childcare, and I go home and I do the marathon of parenting by myself. And when I am exhausted because my kids are finally asleep and I'm worried about something, I sit down at the internet and I pose a question, and 2 hours later, I've gone click, 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 and heard all these different opinions. And I probably don't feel any clearer or any better about what I should be doing because it's been so muddled, what I've heard. And I think that's why we now have parenting coaches, whereas before we didn't used to have them. I mean, why would we have a parenting coach? We had our own mothers, we had neighbors, we had grandparents, we had aunts, we had cousins, we were watching, siblings, we were watching. So yeah, that's why I do what I do. And I believe 100% that parenting is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, it can be taught, it can be practiced. So what I'm trying to do for parents is to just provide them those tools, to give them those skills that they can then reach for to use in moments. And among the skills that I give, communication skills are among the most important, particularly the older our kids get. In fact, by the time we have a middle schooler or a high schooler, our best defense against suicide, against bullying, against body image, against being prey to a sexual predator online, our best defense is the level of communication that we have with our kids, and the willingness and the openness that we have between us and our kids, to have hard conversations. And so that is why I'm so passionate about teaching parents communication skills. And in the workshop that I teach, Constructive Conversations, in the full workshop, I usually teach 3 skills. We review active listening and practice it, because even if you guys have heard about it before, you forget to actually go home and practice it and to do it. Using I statements, which most of our kids have learned in school, but they learn it sort of in isolation, and it needs lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. So it's something I want parents working with their kids on at home, and something I want parents modeling and using for parents. The third skill is a little bit more unique, and I call it comes from the world of improvisation. Have any of you ladies ever done improvisation? No? A little bit, maybe, Nina? Okay, so in the world of improvisation, the object is to keep the scene moving forward. And so sort of the number one rule of improv is to take whatever information the person has given you, introduced into the scene or the situation, and instead of saying no, or that's not true, or I'm going to ignore whatever you just said and create a whole new thing, they have to acknowledge what's been said before they can say and something else. This screens. You guys, let me close the screen because it's going to drive me nuts that the sun's coming through here.
No problem. No problem.
Seriously, you would think after this many months of Zoom that I would have figured this out.
Writing is always a challenge.
Okay, so the technique is called yes, 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 and at the same time. And now I will start from the screen. All right, so this is a technique that helps us find win-win solutions. Its purpose is to keep whatever conversation we're having positive. It's also furthers the task, like active listening is sort of the ultimate task for finding out somebody's core reason for wanting something, but this furthers the task of doing that. And most importantly, it allows us to bring up objections in a way that still keep the conversation in flow and still keep the members feeling good about each other. And that is what allows us to work towards win-win solutions, because in the course of bringing up objections, it's done sort of so gently that we don't begin to get defensive and work in opposition to each other, but we can work together to find win-win solutions. All right, so here's how it works. No matter what the other person says, you're going to start with some positive statement about what he has just said. You have to find something to agree with. And sometimes all we can agree with is a person's feelings, right? Like, yes, I can see you're very upset about that, right? We may not agree with any of the content. We may not even agree that they should be upset. but we can certainly see that they're upset and agree that they're upset with it. We're going to say yes 3 times before we introduce a concern. And what that effectively means is that we're going to listen 3 times before we introduce a concern. We use the phrase "and at the same time." This is super important. From a neurolinguistic point of view, the word "but" is like a slap in the face. It's like, show me the hand, right? Everything about it, it's 2 plosives, but and to, but. It's like an automatic machine gun. But. It doesn't soothe us. It raises our blood pressure, and it automatically negates everything you've said beforehand. So even if you have said yes, 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 as soon as you say "but," it's like putting a big red X over everything you said. And we don't want to do that. We want to allow for everything we just said yes to. And at the same time, we have an additional thought or concern. So yes, yes, yes. And at the same time, right? Can you even hear, before you even have the context of what the argument's about, how that would feel really different from yes, 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 but, right? It's like the buzzer. But. So, and at the same time. All right. And if the conversation gets too heated or gets conflicted, you go back to saying yes, which in effect means you go back to listening. All right, let's look at this example. This is an example with my husband and me. My husband came to me and said, "Busy, let's go to Hawaii for vacation. It would be great to just hang out under an umbrella." And no matter what came up inside of me, I was like, yes, hanging out under an umbrella sounds great. And speaking of umbrellas, I love the little umbrellas you get with your pina coladas. And he's like, yes, and we could go to restaurants right by the water. Yes, how pretty is that? And now that I'm finally eating fish, I could try that mahi-mahi. Yes, and you're not going to get better fish than in Hawaii. Yes, that's so true, right? So I have stuff to agree with here. And you guys might be looking at me going like, well, why wouldn't you agree with Hawaii? Which is exactly why I use this example. Because let's say that I really don't want to go to Hawaii. What then? Then I'm going to say yes and at the same time. So yes, it is still true that the beach, sitting under an umbrella with my pina colada, with my little mini umbrella, sounds good. Yes, I am kind of excited about trying mahi-mahi. Yes, there's a lot, right? And at the same time, Hawaii does sound relaxing. And at the same time, I'm worried about the cost of things. Now, here's something super interesting. People tend to mimic or raise to our conversational level. So I've just said yes, yes, yes. And that's put my husband in a yes, yes, yes frame of mind. And so without even having to teach him the yes, 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 and at the same time technique, he's willing to go, yeah, that's true. Hawaii can get expensive. And at the same time, and he might say, but with this mimicry, he actually has said, and at the same time to me. I've still never pointed it out to him. And at the same time, we saved by not going away at Christmas. Yes, I am so glad we saved. I'm still saying yes. And at the same time, I think we could find someplace that's relaxing and is cheaper too. Well, who wouldn't want to spend yes? I would like to spend yes. And at the same time, being near the water, it's got cut off, is so important. Yes, I totally love the water. And at the same time, I would like to avoid an airplane flight. Okay, so we are continuing to get out our concerns. I've brought up the concern about money. I've brought out concern about an airplane flight. Bala has acknowledged that, saving money it's nice to save money, and still the value of like being near the water is weighs heavily for him. But the conversation's just been kind of going back and forth, right? It's not like we're going head to head. It's not like we're pulling back into ourselves. We're just having a conversation. It's kind of going, yeah, and at the same time, yeah, and at the same time. So this is a very different flow. You all know what this conversation could have gone like, right? Hey, Busy, I think that we should go to Hawaii for vacation this year. What? Are you kidding me? Go to Hawaii? Oh my God, seriously, you guys, I heard that a family went to, a higher end restaurant, family of 4, and they spent $500. That's what inflation is looking like in Hawaii right now. So seriously, right? I could have been like, seriously, do you know how expensive Hawaii is right now? In which case, he would have probably come back with something like, you are so cheap. All you ever think about is money. And he and I would be off twirling into, an argument that we could be having over and over and over, because the fact of the matter is I am cheap. And so, he's not wrong about that. But we would be getting defensive. And would either one of us feel like going on vacation with each other at the end of this? No, we would not feel like going on vacation with each other, right? We would be tight and resentful. And even if in the end I said yes, unless I was exceptionally mature and said yes with a very full heart and was able to put it aside and just go like, okay, we're deciding to spend the money. Let's just spend it then. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not sure I am that mature. I'm getting better, but I'm not sure I'm that mature. So better to have the conversation that really finds a win-win solution. So in the course of our conversation, we've been mining for data of what we both want. We both are looking for relaxation. We both want to be near the water, like being near the water. For Bala, the good food and the salubrious setting is perhaps of higher import. And, I have a concern about things not too expensive. So we actually have a lot of common goals. So now that we've taken the time to go yes, 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 and back and forth and bring up concerns, but also find out what each person really needs, we know what we're looking for, right? We're looking for relaxation near the water that's not too expensive. Well, guess what? How lucky for us that we live in California, right? Because near the water, relaxing and not too expensive is possible, especially because we don't have to pay the plane flight now. Now, I'll just tell you as a little aside, we did end up going to Hawaii. And why? Because when things continued to be tight and none of, how about Tahoe? How about Santa Barbara? Suggestions didn't seem to be working. I went back to the listening. I went back to tell me more about what's important. And it turns out that for my, Southeast Indian husband, the air quality in Hawaii is the closest he can get to Kerala without flying to Kerala. And now when I'm looking at the difference between a flight to Kerala and a flight to Hawaii, all of a sudden Hawaii is looking pretty reasonable in terms of time and effort and money. And so with more information, that shifted how I felt about things, right? Like recognizing that he has come a long way and lives a long way from home, and that I can get a little slice of home by going to Hawaii totally shifted how I felt about things. But we only found that out because I kept staying in the yes, yes, yes mode quietly, persistently mining for information until I found out like what was the absolute core issue. All right, so let's look at this conversation and how it might go with a child. And the beauty of it is that even while the parent holds a limit, the child still feels seen and heard. I need some volunteers.
I'm here.
Okay, Ankita will do it. Gita, will you do the other?
Sure thing.
Okay, one of you needs to be kid and one of you needs to be mom.
I'll be the kid. Let's see.
Okay.
I'll be mom.
Okay, so I just read it, Elizabeth?
Yeah. Is it big enough? I can make it.
No, you're fine. I can do it. Mm-hmm. Mom, Joey has invited me to his house for dinner Friday night.
Yes, his mom told me. And you would like to go?
Oh yeah, Joey says he'll show me his new snap circuit set.
Yes, cool. You really like to see his new set. I know you've been wanting one.
Yes, and guess what? He has 300 parts.
Wow. Yes, you could build a lot with all that. And at the same time, tonight we told Grandma that we'd have dinner at her house.
But I really want to go.
Yes, I know you do. And at the same time, we said yes to Grandma before we knew that Joey would invite you over. Would you like me to call Joey's mom and see if we can arrange another time?
Yes, and it should be tomorrow.
I hear you would like to go as soon as possible. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, so by meeting Joey with excitement and a yes to yes, you want to spend time with your friend, and yes, you want to see the snap circuit set, and yes, oh my goodness, 300 pieces. When she comes up with, and at the same time, tonight we're going to Grandma's house, his reaction is not as strong as it would be, right? You know how often because we're doing a million things at once, Mom, Joey says I can come to his house to sleep, for dinner tonight. Yep, nope, we're going to Grandma's tonight. Like, boom, slap across the face. Shut up, kid, right? And of course, in reflection, we don't mean it that way. But too often, that's what we hit our kids with. And by meeting him with an energetic, happy yes, and acknowledging the excitement of everything that's in store for him, and gently saying, and we have to do this, right? And holding the limit, but I really want to go, yes. And at the same time, we didn't know about Joey's when we said yes to Grandma, right? And you can imagine that there are kids in the world who are going to be like, I hate you. You're the worst mommy in the world. Yes, it feels like I'm the worst mommy in the world, right? I'm not saying I am, just saying it feels like. And I can see you're really disappointed. And at the same time, right? So I just keep quietly coming back to my limit while providing empathy, while providing acknowledgement of where the kid is and what the kid is thinking and feeling, right? So in that way, because, right, after food, shelter, love, being seen, heard, and acknowledged, I think is our very next most basic need. And by showing up, she is giving him that acknowledgement of how fun it's going to be, of how important it is to him. And she tries to find a solution for him. So it's not an immediate solution, but the more that parent and child use this back and forth, the more he's going to trust that she's going to do her best to meet his needs in that way, where he is gracefully accepting the limits that she's going to keep. Okay, so she moves away from autocratic parenting that increases the child's need to rebel. She makes sure that his point of view is acknowledged, and yet she's not giving up her position, right? She's not waffling. She's not going like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe you, maybe I can call grandma. Yeah, no, right? She's being clear. She's being firm. She's holding her limit, but she's doing it in such a loving and acknowledging and present kind of way, which would be great if we can do all the time. And yet having a pattern in your head, right? When we learn patterns, we're more likely to use them. So if we can keep in mind, yes, 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 and at the same time. And I have to tell you that the phrase "and at the same time," I've now taught this so many times. I've now taught it to so many clients. It is such a part of my automatic answer now. And I feel like it has shifted my relationship in so many situations, right? You know, ma'am, you can't return it. You don't have a receipt. Yes, you're right. I do not have a receipt. And at the same time, you can see that the garment is still crisply folded and has never been worn and never been dried and never been washed. I'd like you to consider a refund, right? It's amazing how you get a completely different answer, right? You're acknowledging, yep, this is completely right. You're absolutely 100% in the right in saying that, and at the same time. And that allows them to listen. And at the end of the day, for most things, we're just dealing with people. All right, that's the yes, yes, and at the same time technique. Helping families communicate peacefully, constructively is one of my key goals. Whoops, I don't know why that's that way. Click to add text. Oh well, go away. Anyway, my website is just my name, Elisabeth@Stitts.com. And I do have a speaker sheet. I love speaking to schools,
That's
especially
wonderful.
middle schools. That is what I spent the most years teaching middle school. So that is my sweet spot.